Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Sorcerer Dave's Flying Circus, where we provide you with only the very finest in pretend aeroplanes. Today we're looking at not one, not two, but three add-ons. Actually four, if we count the destination where we're going. So four bloody add-ons. That's quite a lot, actually. The first of which, and the most major of which, is sat right in front of you right now. It is the glorious, the wonderful Rotate MD-80, a plane which, as any of you viewers of my live streams will say, I have been looking forward to this a great deal. I've been fairly excited about it. The MD-80 is just one of those planes which, I don't know, I just love it. In spite of the fact that it's maybe not the best designed plane in the universe, and in some ways that's kind of why I love it. I'm not talking about the add-on here. The add-on is really, really good in terms of the way it's designed. I'm talking about the actual aircraft as it appears in real life, and as it is incredibly well rendered here in X-Plane. Of classic airliner. It's getting on a bit, the MD-80, as you can see by all the weathering and dirt and marks all over this thing. It's kind of getting on a bit, and a lot of airlines have phased these things out and no longer use them. But I still love it. I still love it in all its quirky bizarreness. It's one of a kind. That's for sure. You don't easily forget ever flying in one of these things. And I can't wait to get started here really today. So the second piece of the second add-on thing we're working with here is this scenery you're looking at right now. This is from the xplane.org store. It is unlike much of the although there is a hell of a lot of really nice free scenery for X-Plane, this is actually paid scenery. This is a paid add-on. This is Atlanta, KATL, from the xplane.org store, and it's fantastic. Atlanta is, of course, a gigantic airfield in real life, airport, whatever you want to call it. It's absolutely huge, and it's rendered in all its glory here in X-Plane with this add-on. It looks absolutely fantastic. One small problem I've had with it, mind you, though, is some of the default X-Plane buildings have rendered themselves on top of it. Now, there were instructions in the README on getting rid of that, and I did follow them, and it has got rid of most of it, but not at this end of the terminals here. For some reason, it's still here, which is a little fly in the ointment, but other than that, I really, really like it. The third add-on we are using is one which is called Ultimate Weather XP, I think. I'm struggling to remember everything, I'm afraid, truly, to be honest with you. I should have written notes, but I didn't. And Ultimate Weather XP is powering all of the weather you are seeing right now. There are a couple of weather add-ons you can get for X-Plane. One is called SkyMax Pro, which a lot of people use. I've never totally gotten on with it, to be honest with you. I do have it, but it's never quite ticked the boxes for me. I did until recently just use the default weather with a few free extra cloud textures, which are very nice. They're HD. They were HD cloud textures version 2, I believe. This is more paid scenery, and it comes in the form of this weather package, which I'm very pleased with so far. Perhaps this little sort of little scattering of cloud here is not tremendously doing it justice, but it is really quite impressive. It combines aspects of SkyMax Pro, to be honest with you, and the default weather that I really like. It keeps the default rendering system for the X-plane clouds, which is something I'm a very big fan of. Having flown a fair amount in real life, I'm intimately familiar with the way real clouds look as you fly in and out and around them, and that is something, the kind of effect you get when you're passing through and around clouds in real life is something that X-plane actually models surprisingly well. And that's something that SkyMax doesn't really quite manage, in my honest opinion. One thing SkyMax does have in its favour, though, is it does excellent overcast clouds. And Ultimate Weather here kind of manages to get the best of both worlds. It uses the same old X-plane rendering system with some nice fancy cloud textures of its own, and also manages to do some really, really, really gorgeous overcast weather. It also seems to, as a side effect, get rid of some of the weird flickering shadows I was getting with the default X-plane clouds. As you can see, one of the things I love the most about this this weather, actually, look at these cloud shadows. Look at them rippling across the land like this. Absolutely phenomenal. Looks really good. If I rotate the camera around like a huge deal, it does shimmer a little bit, but it looks absolutely bloody fantastic. I'm really pleased with it. Hopefully I will have remembered to edit in some screenshots I took earlier when I was going around the world and trying out different weather patterns and things. I took some screenshots of some overcast weather in the United Kingdom at the moment, and it looked quite phenomenal, both from the ground and up in the air. So anyway, those are the first three. The fourth is an add-on called Miami City XL, or possibly XP. It's by the Polish studio, whose name I can't pronounce, who did the wonderful New York scenery in the previous 777 video I did. And that is where we're going to be flying today. We're starting off here, as you can see, at Atlanta, and we are flying down to Miami International I correct myself, KMIA is the code for that place. Down from Georgia into Florida, and in Florida, I've very specifically picked this, you see, because the weather in Florida at the moment, according to Sky Vector, is looking very interesting indeed. There's lots of precipitation, there's lots of cloud, and I would very much like to see how this new Ultimate Weather add-on I have renders that. I'm hoping for great things. I truly am. I truly, truly am. Because what I've seen of this add-on so far is really, really nice. So anyway, without further ado, let's get on with this. I probably waffled on for far too long as it is. Like I said, we'll be splitting this into 2 videos, I expect. So, starting off at the back of the plane, down at the bottom here, as you can see, like many high T-tailed aircraft with their engines in the back, it does have a sort of walkway, I don't know what you'd call it, stairs essentially going up into the aircraft from the back, which is pretty cool. This is great because, I mean, one of the earliest memories I ever had involving aeroplanes was when, as a wee nipper, as a very small child, I went to the Imperial War Museum, Duxford, here in the UK. And as anyone who's been there will tell you, out on the apron, because Duxford is an aerodrome itself in addition to a museum, out on the apron are a number of old classic airliners, stonking great big things, parked out there on the apron, including a whole bunch of ones with classic high T-tailed ones like this. I believe they've got a Trident there and a VC-10 parked out there. And as a very small child, I remember walking up to these things and having this massive, massive tails on these things towering over me. And as you can imagine, it made quite an impression on a young Dave. Stood around looking up as far back as his neck will allow him to see, which apparently is not that far in X-plane because it flickers around and goes backwards, but hey. And just being absolutely amazed. So, you know, sitting at the back of this thing right now, this wonderful MD-80 by Rotate, and looking up at that tail, it fills me with nostalgia, if nothing else. So anyway, we are going to go up here into the cabin. And this thing has a wonderful cabin as well. Actually, really, 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 really nice. And it looks picture perfect as far as I can tell. I've seen many photographs and films of the interior of the MD-80, and this just looks spot on. Absolutely spot on. The textures are wonderful. The textures in general for this aircraft are absolutely fantastic. All of the artwork they've done for it is It's spot on. You will note one of the other things I like about this is something I always love to see in X-Plane add-ons is the ability to actually close and manipulate the doors and entryways from inside the aircraft by actually going to them and clicking on them instead of having to use a menu somewhere. I'm going to open that back up for now so we can get the passengers in, but as you can see, we open it and the stairway unfolds. Absolutely great. I love that. Little touches like that I just absolutely love. The extra attention to detail, the extra effort they went into doing that. I mean, even the fact that it animates as it comes out, you know, they could have quite easily just decided to do, okay, it's closed, and then when you click it, it instantly opens with the stairs down. But no, they actually did a whole animation for it and everything. Fantastic. So you walk up all the way through this. You'll note it's a very, very long aircraft. An incredibly long aircraft is the MD-80. A lot of seats in this thing for a twin jet, you know. Where we arrive at the front here, where you've got the air bridge that comes out of the side of the aircraft as well. We can come up here. We can also, as well, I believe... Yep, we can close and fold this thing away as well. Which is fantastic. I'm going to open it up again. As you can see with the arrow, the direction of the arrow when you hover over it changes to sort of denote whether it's opening or closing. Down closes it, up opens it, and we can also do the same with the flight deck door, which is excellent. So I don't have to sort of, you know, morph through it like in the A320, like one of the X-Men. I can just open the door and walk straight in, which is great. It's very cool being sitting in the pilot seat here, and then having a look back over your shoulder and seeing all the way back there. It gives you some impression of how big these airliners really are. And here we are in the flight deck, which is gorgeous. This is by far, I think, probably the best cockpit flight deck, whatever you want to call it, in X-Plane, for any aeroplane in X-Plane, hands down. It is just achingly beautiful. Down to every single last little detail, the flecks of dirt on the screens here, on the glare shield, and the worn metal on the control columns and everything on the yoke here, where the paint is sort of flaked off. Here as well, where it's sort of rubbed off as well on the side there. So good. So good. High resolution textures. 4K, I believe, in most places. Now, be aware that that is going to put a strain on your video memory, so if you have a fairly old graphics card, you might struggle with this aircraft. One thing you can do, and this is something I did, just to free up more VRAM for other things like my weather and ground textures and all that sort of thing, was you can delete the normal map files in the aircraft folder. As you can see, it still looks absolutely gorgeous even without them, but it will reduce your VRAM load quite significantly. Obviously, it looks even better if you leave them in there, but it's up to you. I found it actually improved my frame rate a bit by getting rid of them, and the plane still looks phenomenal anyway. So there you go. I'll go ahead and close the door here so we can get a bit of privacy. And as promised, yes, I will go through the startup and everything with this aircraft. I'm fairly well versed in it by now. You'll have to forgive any mistakes, though. This is always much more difficult when you're trying to commentate in addition to actually sort of doing the business itself. So, right. Okay. Without further ado, let's get on with it. So first things first, battery. Over here goes on. Slightly obscured by the emergency power and use light there, but to say BAT for battery. This is a very confusing overhead panel. A very confusing overhead panel indeed. There is some sanity to the madness, though, because one of the deliberate design decisions that McDonnell Douglas made when they were making this was to make all the different switches you can see here as different from one another as possible, so that if you were reaching up blindly, possibly in the dark, and you grabbed a switch, you would know just by the shape and size of it what switch it was. So you can see, look here, the fire count norm switch actually looks completely different from the APU run switch, even though they're right next to each other and of roughly similar size. It's a very, very clever little bit of design, that, I feel, actually. And the battery switch, again, looks a little bit different. It's got the groove in the sort of the face of it there and everything. Just very, very clever, and reflected perfectly in this Rotate's version, which we're seeing here, which is really, really good. So battery's now on. Now, you could switch on the APU immediately, I'm not going to. I'm going to switch emergency power to on, which will actually bring power on to the cockpit via the battery only, and from there we can go down to the FMC here. We can go, as you can see, we're on the index, the menu page. You go to aircraft management here and you click GPU, and that plugs in the ground power unit outside. And now that's done, we can turn the external power buses left and right on, and we can turn emergency power off. And now the aircraft is powered by the ground power unit. We can turn the displays on by turning these knobs to the maximum brightness here. It does it for both sides, thankfully. You don't have to do it individually. And now the aircraft it has power and we're ready to go. So you could, of course, power up the APU if you want to, which, as I've explained before, is a small jet engine inside the aircraft, the auxiliary power unit, which provides power to the aircraft systems when the engines are offline. However, we're going to use the GPU at the minute. So, now that is done, I need to collect my wits slightly, figure out what comes next. So, I suppose there's a bunch of other stuff we could do, but right now I'm going to go straight down to the FMC here. This is a bit, because this is a bit that really confuses a lot of people, really, these FMCs and how they work. And it's something I've never bothered to explain previously. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to pos init, which initializes our position. It gets the GPS systems aligning, and it basically tells the aeroplane where in the world it actually is. Our reference airport is KATL. You need to use the ICAO code for the airport that you're at. In Atlanta's case, it's KATL, and that gives us some grid coordinates there. And now we need to go all the way up here, and you see this IRS thing here. You need to flip that straight to nav, and it will come up with a line. Don't worry about the one on the right here. That's not currently modelled. It'd be nice if it was, but it's not at the moment. So normally you would flip them both to nav. And so this will now go into the align position, and it will require you to put in some information down here. So it needs to know where it is. So what we do is we simply click here on this line select key next to the coordinates for KATL. We click in there, it copies them into the scratch pad down below, and we just paste it into the set IRS position there. And that is effectively done. I could click execute right now, but oh, and it did work. Fair enough. That aligned very quickly. I expected it to tell me not aligned yet. That's probably because I'm talking so much. And that will power up these displays. It'll tell us where we are on a world map. We flick this over here to map. As you can see, it changes the bottom display here. Yes, the bottom display, by the way, is obscured by the yoke. Some may find that quite annoying. Not least of all, the pilots who actually fly this aircraft for real. I have seen articles written by MD-80 pilots who really, really find this quite irritating. The fact that they decided to put the navigational display smack bang behind the behind the yoke here. Now, thankfully, Rotate, when making this, have made a concession to the fact that this is a sim, and you can click on the yoke to make it go away completely, so that when you're in this default position, you can see the ND perfectly without the yoke getting in the way. Alternatively, you can do what I sometimes do for authenticity's sake, and set up a preset view which leans over the yoke as the guys in real life have to do it. It really depends on, whether or not you can be asked. I'm going to leave it up for now, and try and you do that as much as possible, just for the sake of being authentic, because, if the guys in real life have to put up with it, I should too. Anyway, massive tangent aside, we can now go to the route page. Origin is KATL, that's already filled in. Our destination is Miami. So, where the hell's M? M-I-A. Execute. Now then, there you go. That's essentially told it where we are and where we're going. Now, I'm going to go to departure and arrival, because we actually need to fly a departure, a SID, which I've already explained briefly before. It is a miniature route which will take us out of Atlanta's airspace and onto our main cruising route down to Florida. So we go departure arrival index, we're at KATL, so we click departures, and first of all we want to click the runway we are going to use. Now, in order to know that, we need to know what the weather's like. And the easiest way to do this is to tune into the atis at the airport you're at. Atis is a automatic something beginning with T information service. It broadcasts over a radio frequency for the airport, and it basically tells you what the weather is near you. So I've already got that dialed in here, I believe. So if I swap that frequency over, there you go.
Information Victor. 1800 Zulu
This
weather.
tells us everything we need to
Sky
know about the
condition,
local weather, and
20,000
including
25,000 broken. Visibility 10.
two very important things. One, which is what we need to set our altimeters to, which in this case is 299.7. So we go down here and we click and drag Barrow to 299.7 inches of mercury there. If you're in Europe, you would use hectopascals, which are displayed on the left here. So if we're in Europe, that would be 1015. It also tells us that arriving and departing runway at the moment is 27 right. So that is the runway we are going to be going from. So I can now get rid of this, so we don't have it blaring in the background. And we can click next page down here until we get to 27 right, which is there. Click that, and now you get a list of SIDs. Now, SkyVector has told me that the SID we will be using today, SkyVector is a wonderful tool / website, which really immensely helps, especially if you're flying in the US. You can get routes from it. Instead of having to do something more complex, you basically type in where you are, where you want to go, and then it gives you a list of routes pre-made for you from a drop-down that you can use. The one we're using today begins with the Thursa? Is that it? Thursa, there it is. Thursa Romeo. Yeah, Thursa 9 departure. I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce that, or indeed what it's short for. And we will be using the luck transition. So we've got all that selected. We hit execute. We can go back to route here, and you'll see departing airport is now KATL. Departing runway is 27 right, and then via Thursa to Thursa, and then luck with the luck transition. I can explain SIDs and things in more detail, or alternatively I can provide you with a couple of videos done by a few other excellent YouTubers on this subject who can explain it in far better detail than I possibly ever could, frankly. But it's up to you guys. I'm not going to go into too much detail right now. So that's done. We can now go to route, back to route, which we're already on. We'll just go back to the first page with the previous and next page buttons there. If I look back at my flight plan, the next place we're going to is directly to a VOR which is called SZW. SZW. So we just type that in there, which puts us direct SZW, and then after that we begin the Scott 3 arrival into Miami. I'm not actually going to punch that in yet though. Typically you would not do that in real life. You would wait till you were given an arrival route by ATC while in midair, and then you would put it in midair. So I'm going to do it like that. We'll now hit execute. We can verify on the legs page that everything is hunky-dory. So what we can do is we flip this to plan, and as you can see it's now on plan mode, and down here the step button has appeared on the bottom right. So what we can do is, this is our starting point, 27 right, and we go step, 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 and it ends at SZW and doesn't go any further because we've not filled out anything any further. But that all looks hunky-dory. It's worth doing. I knew that was going to be perfectly fine because I've already tried it, but it's worth doing just to make sure you've not got any spaghetti nonsense with your waypoints and things like that, or if anything needs cleaning up, or if your waypoints need deleting or whatever to get it a bit more sensible looking. It's worth checking out because occasionally that can happen. When you type in a departure route. There's a couple like coming out of Heathrow that I can think of which have some very, very bizarre waypoints on them, which are worth, getting rid of for the sake of simplicity. But everything looks good, so we can flick that back to map, and the legs are fine. So we can now go to initref, and this will take us to perf init. So I'm actually going to leave this for now because we don't have all the info we need to put into that. So first, in fact, I'm going to need to find that. So what I'm going to do is, as you can see here, it needs the amount of fuel that we have, and I don't know how much fuel we need to get from Atlanta down to Florida. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on a free website called fuelplanner.com on my other monitor at the moment, which you guys can't see. I could use OBS to let you see the other monitor. However, we've been down that road before and nearly ended in disaster. So I'm just going to talk you through what I'm doing right now. I've gone on to fuelplanner.com. I'm selecting, it gives you a little drop-down menu, and I'm selecting from it the McDonnell Douglas MD-80, which is the plane we're in right now, and then it allows you to type in your origin, which is KATL, your destination, which is KMIA. You click Planner, and it tells us that, there you go, The fuel usage for the trip is calculated as £10,300 and reserve fuel of £7,800 for a total fuel on board of £18,135. Well, that is almost always with fuelplanner.com a very it's very overestimated. You will typically not require nearly as much fuel as it actually gives you, but I like it for the simple reason that it gives you enough fuel so that no matter how badly you screw up, you will still arrive with enough fuel to do at least 1 or 2 go-rounds if that becomes necessary, which it often does, especially with me, especially in bad weather, which is what we may be flying into down in Miami, so that's pretty good. So now all you have to do with this MD-80 is you go aircraft, weight and fuel, and use the X-Plane default weight and fuel manager here. So we simply click and drag payload weight to whatever we damn well please, as long as the bottom bar there doesn't go into the red. We'll go with there. Not too heavy today. And fuel total I will drag to slightly less than £18,000. We'll go with that. 17,760 should be more than fine. And now we just click in, even though this all looks terrifying right here. It's very simple. All you do is you click that, it does it automatically. You click that, it does your zero fuel weight automatically, which also calculates your gross weight. Your reserves, don't actually need to put that in if you don't want to, but we have that info, so we can type in 7.8 tons. Cost index, this is a number between 1 and 999. It calculates essentially how fuel efficient the engines are in the cruise. I'm going to go with 500, which is about medium. It's what, you know, airlines have very complicated calculations and algorithms and equations for coming up with cost indexes. For our intents and purposes as simmers, you can just basically put in any old number that you can pull out of your arse and it'll be fine. So I've gone with 500 for today. Our cruise altitude for today is probably going to be something nice and high. I'm going to go with 320. Oh, that should be either typed in, by the way, as 32,000 feet or flight level 320. If you just type in 320, you'll get an error. Just bear that in mind. It's a little different from other FMCs you may be familiar with Boeings and Airbuses. It doesn't like it when you just put in 320. Transition altitude, because we're in the US, is a uniform 18,000 feet. And that is pretty much all we need. We could type in this other stuff if we wanted to go find that information, cruise wind and ISA deviation and all that stuff. We don't need to put that in though for the purposes of getting the plane airborne and flying it. It doesn't matter. We can click execute. Click execute pretty much any time the light on it comes up, just to be on the safe side. We can now go to takeoff ref, where we can click outside air temperature. It does that automatically, which is really nice. So many planes don't do that, automatically do the outside air temperature, which is apparently 16 degrees, so it's, you know, it's relatively warm down here in Atlanta, actually. Certainly compared to England, anyway. It's given us flex EPR, our gross weight, a flex temperature of plus 0 degrees for now. And then you have our V speeds, our V1, our V rotate speed, and V2 speed, which are all our takeoff speeds. Now, okay, you could just click these individually and do it right away and have it calculate them for you, but bear in mind, here's something I've learned. Apparently, it only calculates the V speeds for your current flaps position, and our current flaps position is our flaps are totally retracted, which we would never use for a takeoff. So what we actually need to do first is go down here and put on our auxiliary hydraulic switch, which is on there, and then our transitionary, I don't know what that is, auxiliary switch. It wants you to respect its gender decisions, and we can now flick our flaps lever down to the 11 position, which is more than enough for a big old runway like 27 right. And flap takeoff selector, also put this to 11. I don't know why you have to do that for 2 different selectors. It's something I need to research. It's a sort of it's called what they call a dial of flaps selector. Dial a flap, I think it's called. I don't understand how it works, just for the purposes of this, so that the aircraft doesn't, you know, sort of beep at you when you try to take off. Just do it. Just do it. Just set it to 11 there and there. Setting it to 11 here is fine. You won't need to worry about that ever again in the flight, pretty much. Just leave it as it is. That's fine. So now, hopefully, because we've got the auxiliary hydraulics online, yes, it has lowered our flaps and our front slats, which you can see on here, which look fantastic, by the way. Look at that. So that is now done. Our flaps are hunky-dory, and we can now, finally, dial those in. And we've got a V1 of 114, a VR of 130, and a V2 of 139, which has actually set, or it should have set, oh no, it won't until I click execute. So we click execute, there we go, pre-flight is complete. And look, it's set to these little plastic bugs here. So our V1 is here, our V2, and, no, VR, sorry, V-rotate, V2, and then that is our flap retraction speed, I think, if I'm not completely insane and forgot about that, but anyway. And that's pretty much everything we need to do with this little bugger down here. Trust me, it's nowhere near as complicated as it looks or sounds. Once you've done it a couple of times, it all makes perfect sense. It's really no more complicated than your average pocket calculator. It's no worries, okay? So I'll go back to the legs page now just so we can see our legs coming up on our route. And that's pretty much that done. The flight planning stage is done. All of the aircraft has been told where we are, where we're going, how we're going to get there. It's hunky-dory. So now we just need to deal with everything else, all the other flip switching, switch flicking things, and so on and so forth. So we've already done a bit of that when we got this set up with the power here and everything. So now what we need to do is we need to flick the start pump on. Emergency lights, we will arm those. Our seat belts and no smoking signs can come on. Pitot heats, I don't know if we really want to put those on right now. In case one of the ground crew accidentally burns himself on one of the probes. So we're going to leave those off for now, but we will need to switch them on. When in doubt, by the way, if you're not sure you've done everything correctly, just look at the enunciator panels up here. It will tell you in big orange block capital letters if you've missed anything. So when in doubt, do that. There are a bunch of checklists that come with this plane in the manual, of course. I'm not using them, though, because I'm a bit of a pleb, and I just like to make up my own flows as I go along, and basically do everything completely incorrectly. We can turn on the floodlights down here. We can turn up the digital panel lights. We can turn up the other panel lights a little bit so we can see things a little more clearly. You can turn these all the way up, by the way, like super mega bright if you want to. And you've got just these little light bulbs you see under here, under the dash. Again, more epic detail here with all the little wires and everything. Oh, I love it. So good. I'm going to turn that down for now, though. That should suffice, just about that level of lighting. And okay, so what next? What next? We could test the stall warning. We can test the max speed warning. There we go. We could put the logo light on if it was the middle of the night. Well, I'm not going to bother though. We can put your damper on for sure. That's sort of everything up here. Mostly we can... I'm just scanning the panels at the moment to make sure there's nothing I've missed. When in doubt, when you're confronted with something big and ugly and terrifying like this, just work through it methodically. Start at the top left, make your way down, and just click anything you think needs clicking. It's that simple, really. That's how I get through these big, terrifying aircraft. I just methodically go through them and click anything I think needs clicking, and you'll be fine. And for now, it looks like we are pretty good. We can turn on the window anti-icing, though, the windshield anti-icing, I guess. And that's pretty much okay for now. Yep, that looks good. So I guess now all we need to do is we'll assume that the passengers and whatnot are on board. We can actually go down here and we can do this, use this takeoff computer that the MD-80 has. Another unique little thing I've never quite seen in another aircraft, which calculates the long trim we need for the control surfaces outside on the wing, well, not the wings, but the tail. Now, the way this works is you dial in your center of gravity, which for us at the minute I believe is 0. I think we can double check over here in the FMC if I get a takeoff. Possibly perf. I think there's a center of gravity in here somewhere. Maybe I'm misremembering that completely. Menu, takeoff, no, menu, perf, 0 fuel weight, gross fuel weight, gross weight even, fuel, reserves, cost index, blah blah blah. Never mind. I'm not seeing a center of gravity here. Never mind. I know for a fact our center of gravity is 0 because that's what it said on the weight and fuel page up there. So we leave that at 0 here, and our flaps for takeoff are going to be 11. So we dial in 11 on there. Now this is really finicky. This doesn't like it if you put it just even half an inch too high or too low. Otherwise it beeps on you during takeoff. So please get that right. And now we drag the trim thing here down. And we keep it held down. A little buzzing noise as the electric trim at work. Until we get to about 9.5. So there, more or less. Yep, that looks good. So as you can see, the long trim here is about 9.5. Slightly closer to 10. So there we go. That should be good. The flaps we've already set up. So that's all nice and configured. At this point, I suppose if you were flying online and using ATC, you'd do a bunch of ATC-related stuff with radios and things, and we're not going to, though. We can go here, we can put on our position lights. Dragging it down to both will turn on the strobe, which we'll need later for takeoff. Which, is not actually flashing right now, interesting. Or is it? I can't see. Anyway, for now, just put it on, the middle selection. Anti-collision light can go on in a second when we're about to start up. So now we can go down to... I can go through the aircraft now and close all those doors manually should I wish to. I'm not going to bother though, because you can do it very quickly if you just go aircraft management and you click to close all of these doors here, like that. You can see the shadows moving outside as the air bridge came back in as well, which is nice. That's all closed. We're pretty much ready to get going, so what we need to do now is we need to start up the APU. Hold that down until you see this needle up here moving, this EGT needle. It is moving, then you just let go and it goes to the run position. And now we wait. And the APU is online, indicated by APU power available. Click that on both buses. Turn the external power off. Go back down here, go to aircraft management, and get rid of the GPU. And right about now, I suppose we'd probably do some sort of before start checklist or whatever. If we were a sensible person and not me, we're not going to do one. I'm reasonably sure I've got everything right up to this point. I've had plenty of practice, trust me. So yes. As I said, this is not really meant to be any kind of tutorial how to fly this plane. There are better tutorials out there. There is an exceptionally good video by a fine gentleman called Cat Strater. Link will be in the description if you want a proper how-to on this aircraft. I'm just giving you the sort of I'd say quick, but we've probably been here a while, but certainly very dirty way of starting this aircraft like a bit of a pleb like me. You know, it's just one of those things. There are, as they say, many ways to skin a cat, and this is one of them. So, the APU gens are both on. Air, for air conditioning, turn that on. And also, that's pretty much it. We can now switch on the fuel pumps, all 6 of them, down there. Switch on the... what are these things called? I forget. Pneumatic crossfeed valves. Yeah, okay. Open them. I don't know exactly what they do. Just switch them on for now. Trust me. Our auto brakes, put them to takeoff. Down there. Right. Bizarrely, for some reason, another sort of weird... thing to do with the slightly odd design of the MD-80 by McDonnell Douglas, but there are a number of items in this cockpit which are put in very odd places, which are not remotely ergonomic and just make very little sense. And to be honest with you, seem to have been placed there because the designers kind of forgot to put them in, and then at the last minute it felt like, oh crap, we've got to try and find a place for it somewhere. So for that reason, the auto brakes dial is all the way down here on its own little thing, bolted to the main pedestal, as opposed to down here on the dash where it is on pretty much any other aeroplane ever. So, yeah, be aware of that, but put that to takeoff. And we would now inform ATC we are ready to push and start if we were flying online, or if it were real life indeed. We're not going to bother though. So, what we are now going to do is going to turn our pitot stall heats on, and all you do is you click to drag that onto here. You can also drag it all the way through here to verify effectively that all of the different heaters are working. But just dragging it into any of this band here will switch it all on. As you will see, that the message will have disappeared from the annunciator. Whew. Okay, now go up here, switch both generators on, and switch the engine start system to system A. Unguard both start switches, and we will now call upon Mighty Tugmaster, who does, I'm happy to say, work pretty flawlessly with this plane, and he'll do our pushing back for us. We'll call him. I don't know whether or not an what am I talking about? An A320. I was about to say then. I was like, what? And I don't know whether an MD-80 would start its engines at the gate like this, or whether it would do so during pushback. We're going to operate today under the assumption that it does so during its pushback, like most airliners, but you never know. That van needs to get the hell out of the way right quick. And we're going to push back onto this taxi line here, and I believe 27 right is over here somewhere. I'm cheating right now like a crazy person, but yes, 27 right is indeed this runway, so not a long taxi at all, mercifully. Okay, Tugmaster's arrived. He's ready to lock. We'll release our parking brake. We'll click lock. He'll lock us in. And we can now start our engines, because we're pretty much cleared to do so. So now we just click. We'll start engine 2 first, as is tradition. Click that on. Right start valve open. And as you can see here, the N2 is starting to rise, and we will monitor that. We will keep an eye on that N2. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos or streams where we've started up aircraft, it's the same every time with these jets. We can also tell Tugmaster to start pushing us back by clicking backwards there. The plane has just sort of jumped for joy. It's keen to be getting on its way finally. And anyway, keep monitoring the N2. Once it hits 24%, which it just did, you drag the fuel lever in. Fuel goes in, big boom happens, the exhaust gas temperature shoots right up to 500, and then it slowly calms down again. The N2 will go up to about 66, the N1 should go up to about 29, this will settle around the 300 or so mark, and that is a stable engine, boys and girls. So, we turn off the start valve, we turn on the left start valve for engine 1, and we repeat the process once more. So you can see we wait for that to reach 24, we whack in fuel, big boom booms happen, engine starts. Engines are located all the way at the back here, and as you can see, those wonderful X-plane heat shimmer effects are at work already. Some people have commented on the fact that this exhaust thing here seems to be all black and dirty, whereas this one isn't. The reason for that is it's because the APU exhaust is located there, and it blasts off onto this thing, hence its slightly barbecued appearance. Nice bit of attention to detail on the part of the skin makers. This livery, by the way, it does not ship with the plane itself. This was made by a gentleman called T-Fleck, I think, if I'm not getting that completely wrong. Over on the .org forums, you can download it for free. Link will be in the description. It looks lovely. It's the updated current Delta livery that Delta use for this plane. Now, if I was a clever person, I would have turned myself around to push back onto one of these lines here, but that usually ends in disaster when I try to do it, so we'll go with this straight push back here, and I think right about now we'll stop. This has shot up all the way to 26 because I was too busy talking. We'll put the fuel in. We may have knackered the starter motor there slightly, but it's all good. It's fine. It's fine. It's good. I don't know why my mouse cursor's got the loading logo, but it did. Whatever. And yeah, it's already settling down. Looking good. Turn off that valve. Guard the switches again to make sure we don't accidentally knock them. Leave the ignition system on system A for now. That's the safe thing to do when operating this aircraft. We can also unlock Tugmaster, put our parking brake back in by pulling this little knob out here. It's sort of a little counterintuitive like that. I would have thought you'd pull the parking brake out. But no, you push it in. No, sorry, you push to release and then pull it to lock it, as opposed to the other way around. But never mind. Again, more quirks of this interesting aeroplane. Parking brakes, it tells us, are now on. That's pretty much the only thing that's wrong, essentially. verify both the generators are already on. They are, so we can turn off the APU from the buses, and we can actually turn the APU itself off, like so. This light will go out in a second, and you will see the APU start to spool down. Excellent. And there we go. That's pretty much the entire start sequence. I think I'm going to make an executive decision here and break the video, and I will be back, ladies and gentlemen, after we've got rid of Tugmaster, and we are about to taxi, take off, and fly to sunny, or not so sunny, as the weather reports indicate, Florida. So, I will catch you in the next part of the video.